Please join me in welcoming Severo Perez. And we'll get going.
Wow, well, thank you so much to everybody in the crowd for coming out. I love to see this turnout. It's really great to see everybody here. I think just to start off, let's start from a little bit from the beginning and talk about what drew you to the book. How did you know this was the story you wanted to adapt?
Well, can you hear me? I was looking for something to write. I had I was not happy with the kind of films Hollywood was producing and how Latinos were represented in most movies, because they were nothing like the people that I grew up with and I knew. So one day I had picked up a couple of copies, 2 books, Best Mi Última and Y No Se Lo Tragó la Tierra. And during a break in production, I sat down and I picked up one of the books, turned the first page and started reading. I didn't put it down until I finished the last page. It's only 88 pages. But for the first time, I recognized that this man was writing about the world I grew up in. He was speaking the same language that I had heard. We heard, we knew the same folk tales. We heard the same, we had a certain history. I mean, the character of Portillo in the film, which I hope they show in the clip, was somebody that existed. I knew was a real person. Some of the events that are mentioned are things that are historically in the Chicano community, in the barrio where I grew up. These were things that we all knew about. They may not be known outside of the West Side, but suddenly I realized that this was literature. And I saw the movie for the time I read the book. I knew the movie I wanted to make. And it took me 20 years from that moment to the time it premiered at the Santa Barbara Film Festival in 1994. But that was the journey of my life.
Could you give us a little snippet of that journey? How did it, talk us through that 20-year journey from the time you read the book to making it? Like, what all went into making the film?
Well, I was doing films in San Antonio. I had done some commercials for Church's Fried Chicken. I'd done Village Casuals. I'd done commercials for them. I worked as a cameraman on a documentary for the Sierra Club. The problem was that the documentary I was doing for the Sierra Club was intended to stop the freeway that goes from the airport to downtown, that would go right through Olmos Park. So the documentary was about how this freeway was going to destroy this exquisite park. So, well, the film got made, it got shown on primetime television, and the mayor of San Antonio came on right afterwards and rebutted the film, which meant that I didn't work anywhere for a year. Nobody would hire me as a cameraman. So when the opportunity came to move to Los Angeles, because I got a job that took me to Los Angeles to work as like a production manager, hire a crew and things like that. When I got to LA, I realized that if you're going to make movies, this is the only place to be. Because there, whatever ambitions I might have had in San Antonio, they were just too grand. But those same ambitions in Los Angeles, in the right place, were very doable. I could achieve them, and I was working right away. Within a couple of months of the time I got there, I wasn't proud. I mean, immediately, somebody you want a production assistant? I'll work for free. But then those people realized that they could count on me, that I was there on time. And so the next time they needed a PA, I was the first person they'd call. And from there, I became a production manager, which I did for 5 years. I was very good at it. Nobody wanted, I was working all the time. The problem, I was making my own little films at the same time, but as a production manager, people wanted me to stay. You know, you're really good at that. And I said, but I want to direct. I want to write. He said, no. You just stay what you're doing, production managing. You're really good at it. So in a certain sense, I said I sort of had to commit suicide. I had to stop being a production manager. When people called, I said, I don't do that anymore. And it took a couple of years, but then I produced my own documentaries. I was selling them commercially. Again, now I was establishing a new credentials as somebody who delivered. That they would get an assignment, I would write it, direct it, finish it, produce it, and have it to the client, you know, within a really decent amount of time. I was very good at that. And I just, from there, I continued I worked on Seguin for American Playhouse, which is a feature film. And I continued that producing and production managing are basically the same job, just has a different title. So then I just continued producing films. I was working regularly. And even after the year 2012, I continued to work regularly for another 10 years until I retired. I loved every moment of it. Sometimes it was really hard, but at the times it was really hard, I didn't want to be anywhere else.
Great. I guess going into that, maybe we can watch a little bit more of the film and we can talk about it from there.
Yeah, we can talk about the actors.
Yeah.
¿Sabes qué? Maybe he's writing to us in Minnesota. Sí, vas a ver.
Sometime in the winter, my brother's letters stopped coming.
Get letters.
Weeks passed without a word.
Anímate, mujer. It's gonna be all right. Ándale pues, vamos. Let's go see Bartolo.
Bartolo usually passed through our town in December when he was sure everyone was home from the field. He always came selling his poems for a nickel a page. By the afternoon, they were all gone because in his poems, you would find the names of people in your hometown and well-embellished stories of things that had happened just last year. For a quarter, he would sing you any poem he ever wrote, from his memory.
Como un chicharrón. Ahí viene mi suegra bajando la loma, brinca la leña y echa la maroma. No, que no, hombre. Ándale, hombre. Mira nomás, Marcos. Mira qué grande está. Y look just like his papá, ¿verdad? ¿Seguro? Mira, cómprame una, mano. Está muy bonita, mira. No tiene dicha el mundo si no estás tú. Ni las flores perfumen lejos de ti. No brillará de noche la luna así. Si tú no me amas, si no me quieres como yo a ti. No. Ándale, hombre, ándale, cómpramela. Ándale, mira, and I'll show you how to sing it to your wife, eh? Or your sweetheart.
No, hombre, I don't have a voice for singing. I don't have any money for my honey.
You'll learn to sing.
Ándale, ándale. Muchas gracias, muchas gracias.
Dios Jesucristo, Santo de mi corazón. This is the third Sunday I come to beg you to bring me word of my son.
I haven't heard from him in 5 months.
Protect him. Don't let a bullet pierce his heart. From the time he was a baby in my arms, and I nursed him to sleep, he was so gentle and grateful. He would never bite me He's so innocent. He would never hurt anyone. Protect him. He's so fine and kind. Hey, Virgencita, you cover his body and his head. And cover the eyes of the communists. And the Koreans and the Chinese, too. So they don't see him. So they don't kill him. The night before he left, I held him in my arms. And he was crying. He was afraid. I could feel his heart beating. Virgen de Guadalupe, you bring me back his heart. You take my heart, you take it out, but not his. Mine. You bring me back his heart.
For a long time, we never spoke of my brother. It was as if he had left the house to go to the store and he would be home any moment.
Good for potato salads.
How much?
Ver.
Papayas!
Sorry.
Papayas! Ricas! Papayas!
3 cents a pound. We have 3 cents a pound. Ahorita,
You want potatoes?
times up.
That's 10 pounds for 20 cents. Tomatito, cómprame 4 y le regalo uno.
Mira, why don't you go get yourself a soda, huh? Come back in an hour, and luego we'll go get some tacos de barbacoa, huh?
Miedo, arrímense. La barata. Ándale, ándale, ándale. No se me quede atrás. Venga, ese tomatito. Tres costales. A ver, ¿a quién le toca esta caja de tomatitos?
$30. It's beautiful, very good. Are you interested? $30. 3 dimensions. Bedroom for the whole family.
See, tú! We want to talk to you about your pictures.
Yes. They're such fine workmanship. Have you seen them before, sir?
You were going to make a picture of our son. The boy we lost in Korea. When I'm angry, I don't forget a face.
Listen, it was a mistake. Listen, I was robbed. I got drunk at some point. You don't care for anything. Please don't hurt me, please. What do you want? I'll do anything. Please.
Marcos, pick up this man's things. I want you to make a picture of my son. And I want it in 3 dimensions, as they say. And I want it today. ¿Comprendes? The faster you finish, the faster we will be on our way. And I want a first-class job, too. Just like you promised, eh?
I don't have a picture to follow, senor. That's the problem.
Then you will have to do it from memory, eh?
Of course.
¿Por dónde vamos?
This way.
I've watched the film a few times over the past few weeks, and I'm still blown away by y'all's performances. I think they're very touching and really the heart of the film. I guess this was still early on in y'all's career, so I'm curious, what did it mean to land these lead roles for this project for y'all?
I like the way you say early on. I think you could tell, right? It was. You can see las canas, yeah, right? My beautiful canas. Yes, and so back to your question. What was the question again?
Just like, what did it mean to y'all to be able to land like these lead roles in the project?
For me, I mean, it's at any time would have been great to land this part, but yes, in that particular moment, I had been acting. Let's see, this was done in '92, I think, and I had been acting for about 12 years, but I had never ever encountered a part quite like this, and I was thrilled that anyone would even want to see me for this part, because heretofore up to that point, in Hollywood you get pegged for a certain type, typecasting it's called, and right away they saw me as the gangbanger, the wayward delinquent from the barrio, and for whatever reason, I don't know why, but no. But those were the types of roles that I was being seen for episodically for television, and I'm sure Rose can attest to the same thing. And along comes this part that is really a reflection of the experience of so many Latino families who have known somebody in their family, or perhaps that they themselves went every year to pick. Para la pizca, they used to call it, And my grandparents were part of that group of people that would go into in my case, Northern California, the San Joaquin Valley, to pick all manner of fruits and vegetables. And all of a sudden, I just felt a kinship with my own family, In reading the words that Severo had adapted from this book, I began to see members of my own family. I began to really make a connection with something that was real, a real tri-dimensional characters that really lived and breathed something true. And not to say that the types of roles that they make, the gang-related roles, are all, are not true. Yeah, sadly, that is an element that even persists to this day, but it's not the only thing. And so when I encountered this role, what an opportunity, and I saw it as an opportunity at that point. And let me just tell you, I've been doing this now for like almost over 40 years.
40, yes.
Yes. She hates it when I say that because...
But it is true, 40.
Because, she's been around as much as I have. But, even now, you don't find this kind of... You don't find that very often. You don't find this type of opportunity, this type of role that you can really... That is positive, that says something so positive about our culture. So I'll put a period on it there so that
my turn.
My colleague can say something about it too.
By that point, I had become used to walking into an audition and sitting in the waiting room, going like that. And walking in and saying, I'm Rose Portillo. I am here to tell you why I am not auditioning for this part. It is racist, it is stereotypic, and no one should be playing this part. If it was a funny part, I'd go, think about it. Does she need to be dressed this way? Does she need to be speaking this way? And if you were to cast a dog, literally, in the part, would the joke still be funny? Then hire a dog. And I was just about getting tired of that, of saying no. I was the girl who said no. So it was important to me from the day I got my diploma and started to work that I be a part of telling genuine, truthful stories. And my education, once I graduated, was finding out how few those were, how few existed. There are many more now. The opportunities are very different now than they were when Marco and I began. So I then had the experience of being part of Zoot Suit. And I saw what it meant to tell a truthful story to an audience and the reaction that that had and how change was truly possible through our art form. So it only became harder to accept a stupid part. At this point, even if it's just stupid, sometimes it's okay, it's a check. Pero por favor. So when this opportunity comes, I'm as nervous as can be because I want this part. This is the kind of story I want to tell. También, it hadn't occurred to me, but I realized my family didn't travel to pick. They didn't do that, but they stayed locally in Isleta, Texas. So they were strawberry pickers and cotton pickers, literally, when it was time in their area. So the locations and the homes and the words and the language, I don't get to say those words publicly, right? I don't get to speak that way publicly. It was real important.
Wow, yeah, thank you for sharing. So many things I want to follow up on, but I guess I want to also touch on y'all's relationship, because I think the director-actor relationship truly makes the film, and I think so much goes into it. Could y'all talk about the process of bringing that truth to the screen? Like, what kind of work did y'all do together to prepare?
Maybe you should start.
Yeah, I don't remember.
You should all go by the book.
Yeah. Now, what a director has to rely on is what the actor brings to the auditions. Well, you look at their resume, you look at this and look at that, but at the same time, you have to say, how does this person present themselves to you? How do they look when they do the audition? Does it look like they're serious, or are they just reading the part, just check off, tell their agent that, yeah, I went out for it. And I kind of both knew the history. I knew that Marco had been in a movie called The Crow, and I'd seen that, and then I also saw Rose in Zoot Suit. Of course, I saw at least 3 times in the play. I was also responsible at Universal Studios to getting Zoot Suit to film produced. So I already had some background on these people. So when they came in, I felt I'm safe, I'm good, I'm covered. These parts are going to be okay. And you worry about every part. Every part, has got to deliver. Like the part of the young boy has to have some kind of tenderness, some kind of soul inside of it. And I knew these 2 actors that were going to be able to deliver what I wanted, and of course they did in spades.
Thank you. You have to feel safe in your director's hands, that you can say, "Can I do that again?" And what do you think about this? You have to feel heard as well as seen. So that's really important. And I think that, obviously, you develop a shorthand after a while.
Well, it's true. I mean, it's very much a relationship. It's a collaborative process. I mean, he breathes in, we breathe out, and vice versa. I mean, it's difficult to explain, but it's almost like, you know, a relationship between your husband and wife in some ways, because there are good days, there are bad days.
And you have to trust.
Yes.
But there's the commitment to make this work.
Yeah.
And that's what we were committed to do. That had to be there. We had to see the vision collectively and know that, as Rose said, this is an important piece of work. And we went beyond the confines of just being actors.
It wasn't just a job.
No, we supported this as much as we could because we knew what this meant, not only to us, but to our community. And so we were out there on days, and some days, you know, doing the forbidden thing that union people don't like you to do, and that is we were pulling cable, we were doing, we were just doing stuff that because we were running out of, we were constantly running up against the clock. I remember one story, you know, real briefly. We were out there near Magic Mountain, filming off one of the highways up there, and word came that my car that had been parked alongside one of the hillsides there had been totaled because somebody had come around and just crashed right into the car.
I don't remember.
Yes, and so I could not. I was trying to tend to that, but at the same time, the sun was going down. We were trying to get this crucial scene done. If you see the whole movie, you would know what I was talking about. But we eventually, finally, because the sun was going down so fast, that we opted for poor man's process, which means that we had to shoot, instead of actually driving, mounting the camera on the truck and moving through the hillside, or the road, we had the truck stationary and the camera stationary, and it looked like we were traveling. Right. But those are the types of compromises that we were up against, and I'm sure Severo remembers quite a few of those. But I'm just to let you know how much we were really dedicated to making this happen. You know, this was not a big budgeted movie. This was not a movie where you're given a budget of, you know, $100 million, and you can shoot a half a page a day, you know. No, we had, in fact, the entire movie was shot in how many weeks or how many days?
27 days.
27 days, yes, in two major locations, one in California, one in Minnesota. Yes, so
we went to eat in Minneapolis.
Yes.
You and I.
And in Minnesota, we were scheduled to be in Minnesota for 11 days, and it rained 9 out of the 11.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, when you plan a shoot, you plan, you know, rain days. So like, it's going to rain. It's a risk you have to take. So you plan for 3 rain days. Well, we went through those right away. And then we would go out and shoot, and I'd do a film, you know, shoot all day long, and then I'd go back to the motel and rewrite the scenes for the next day as interiors that were meant to be exteriors. Actually, it was quite creative. It was actually, I was quite surprised that some of the scenes came out better than I had imagined they would have come out if we had shot them the regular way.
Yeah. I'm going to share a story. I warned you. So this man has already said that he's made documentaries. So, and you know, we're on a very small 3 weeks. It's very fast. We can't screw up. We're ready. And suddenly, there's a very terse voice coming in this direction. Why didn't you go? You didn't say action. We went, he said, I'm sure I did. No, did he say action? I didn't hear action. Okay. Little kids are there going, no, he didn't say action. So Severo says, I'm used to doing documentaries, and it's really important that you're super quiet, that the director says nothing during the documentary. We look at each other. We get it. So he goes back to the camera. We go, okay. Marco goes, okay, I take action today, you take action tomorrow. Okay. And so we just took turns saying, I think everything's set. I think it's time to go. Action, go.
That's great,
I
yeah.
didn't say action, they just didn't hear it.
There you go.
It's all quiet. Camera, everybody's ready, sound ready, everybody's ready. Action.
Yes, he's over there.
Well, I think the all the hard work definitely shows, and I love hearing those production stories. Do y'all have one favorite moment from set that you remember?
I told mine.
That's a good one.
There's another one too in terms of and this goes back to how this movie was shot. And I mean, we were having a conversation earlier today about how this film, when you see it, is not necessarily done as a traditional type of movie with a linear line of action throughout the film. It's much more lyrical. It's almost done with a musicality, a pacing of musicality of its own. And it's shot, and it's not shot necessarily in sequence. It jumps around, but that's part of the beauty of the movie. And I remember one time, I think this was in Minnesota. You were shooting the scene where you were. I think I was ill or something, and you were putting these little
Healing things?
healing. Yes, it was
The scapular.
Oh,
scapular. Yes,
It's a scene where Marco has had a sunstroke. And,
yes, that's what it was.
And Rose is washing the scapular that was around his neck.
Exactly, and praying over me and all that, and I was going like, well, where's the close up? I just, and finally I spoke. I don't think you remember this, and finally Severo tells me we don't need one, and I was going like, that's very strange, and he says because, and it was all shot like in just one take. We did a lot of those where they were just kind of shot in one take, because if that scene had been shot in a different way, it would have ruined that musicality that you were talking about. And it wasn't until afterwards, when I saw the movie, that I began to appreciate why he was doing that.
If it had been chopped, it would have been
Yes,
a different story.
Exactly. And so you gain a greater appreciation for the filmmaker when you see what he's trying to do, but at the moment, your ego's going like, "What? Where's?"
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Coverage.
Where's the freaking close-up?
I'm here too.
But a lot of those were done for economic reasons because
yes,
we didn't have the time.
But you have to have the creativity in those moments, or you're up shit creek.
But other than that, I mean, I had the support of a wonderful cinematographer who trusted me, and I trusted him. And we'd actually made several films together before, so we used to communicate. The sound man also. We had great sound all the way through, recording sound. Again, somebody I'd worked with many times before. So in many ways, when we were in the set shooting, it was all done with nods. You ready? You know, and they'd look at the sound man, he'd nod. Cameraman, he'd nod. And I'd say, action.
You nod. You were nodding.
And I'd nod. But you weren't looking.
Correct.
That's wonderful. I'm going to bring it back to a little bit like why we're here. You know, it has been 30 years since the film. So what's it like reflecting back on that, you know, like being here and 30 years later and its legacy? This is for anybody who wants to answer.
For me, it was very difficult because the film was like one of my children. I was asked recently, what is your favorite scene in the film? I said, well, that's asking me what part of my child is my favorite. He's got nice hands. No, it's the whole child. So whatever within for my own children, I've always felt the thing I disliked most about them was the part that was most like me. So I worked pretty hard not to dislike them for the things they did that were like me, that they learned from me. Well, this film, in a certain way, I made so many compromises, so many things. I mean, when you shoot, when it rains 9 out of the 11 days you're on a location, something gets sacrificed. And we sacrificed several really important scenes that I felt were like cutting off an arm. You would work around it, but you understand that you're still alive, but it's a sacrifice you've made. And it was very difficult for me to watch the film for at least 5 years. And it took 30 years before I could be an audience again and appreciate it as a whole, because I was still looking at the mistakes or the sacrifices or things that were completely irrelevant. Nobody cared. Nobody sees, but I did.
Is there anything you want to add just in terms of reflecting back on the film?
30 years. I'm old. It's, I haven't seen it in a really long time. So even just seeing those clips, I'm like, that's kind of, yeah. Because, sometimes you have a memory and you go, well, that doesn't hold up, does it? But it's so lovely to know we did it. And many people weren't born yet. And they get to see it. And it has an impact. And it has an impact. And it has a life. That's really lovely. And I never expected to be here doing this, about that. Yeah.
I did have a moment once in the sound mixing when you've done everything you possibly do. I mean, you've done all the opticals that are supposed to be in the film, all the titles are in the film, and you're in the last part of the film is the sound mix. And the sound mix took like 2 weeks. And toward the end, you reach a point where you've done everything. I mean, all the time that I've been making this film, it's been talking to me. The actors say, what do you want? What would you like here? Cinematographer saying, what do you want here? Art director, everybody's asking. And for me, that was the film talking to me. Mm-hmm. So I reached that moment where I'm sitting there in the sound studio, the mixing studio, and this is it. We finished. Mm. And they begin to play the film for the last time, for the last time in that studio, but the first time it's finished. And at that moment, I felt, as the film started to play, it doesn't look over its shoulder and ask any questions. Oh. It's It's like one of my kids going off to college. He said, please write. Call sometime.
Yeah.
And it did.
Yeah. That's...
Yeah, I think it definitely did. I think too, y'all have mentioned Zoot Suit, and all three of you were really integral parts of just like this Chicano film movement and across the '80s. Before this film, what did we have? Zoot Suit was really one of the first ones that came across mainstream. We had La Bamba, El Norte, Stand and Deliver, like just barely a handful. And so in what ways do you think the industry has changed since then, especially like in putting Chicano stories out there?
Well, I'm just, earlier we were talking about the lack of materials. I felt actually really lucky that I felt I've got this whole field to work in. Nobody's harvested these stories before. I get to do it first. So there's that.
Yeah, yeah. There's more of us now. There just is. There's more of you everywhere. We're much more integrated. There's a lot of work still to do. That is, don't get me wrong there. Some are trying to actively turn the clock back. Let's not let that happen. But I think the fact that younger people, regardless of your home life and where you come from, more people are seeing more stories and being able to, we are a part of the American culture and the American story and the American fabric. And so the more we invest in sharing those stories, well, there are more of you. And so I hope that we have helped to open opportunities and vision that you will take advantage of. And no work of art is easy to make. No work of art, regardless of the opportunities. It's not easy. It's a very hard road on all levels. It is so incredibly worth it. And if you have the calling, seize every opportunity that is afforded you. Write the grants, enter the festivals, write the story and give it to somebody else who you think will help you with it. Just there are more of us. And that is something wonderful.
Also, I'm incredibly positive about the future. I'm not making films any longer, but if I were starting my career today, I just see all kinds of possibilities. I mean, the magic that you can create with a goddamn phone. And I don't see enough people taking full advantage of it and using just iMovie to make something really incredible right in with your own computer. The thing is that discipline and aesthetics are incredibly important. So it's not just, the first people who were doing videotape, where we were like, we don't need all those cameras, we don't need all that lights. Well, the stuff looked like crap. So, you can shoot up with a phone and it'll look like crap. If you take advantage of the fact that this is so inexpensive, but just pay attention to the lighting, the performances, and to the music, because when the thing is all finished, that's all you have left. And if you give it your best honest effort, if you fail and you learn. If you succeed, it's the next step to doing the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. Because success means to continue. It doesn't mean like a final point.
You have to be willing to fail. You have to risk it. You have to. Or your work will not be good.
You hear that, students? I'm going to open it up to the audience shortly, but just one last little question. In your book, a few times you mentioned how you predicted the future a little bit. You mentioned watching movies on your phone and things like that, and you have another wonderful quote about how the medium changes, but the stories stay the same. Do you have any predictions for us?
Predictions?
Yeah.
Not in this point in my life, because I'm not current. I'm not up to where, at all those stages when I said those things, I was current with technology. I heard a term at the time, this is the state of the art at this moment. Well, the art has gone. It's now continued, and I stopped. I had to stop someplace. And I'm still creative. I still have a creative life. I'm writing. But movies, somebody said, you want to make another movie? I said, well, each one takes about 3 years. From the moment you start. And if you're lucky, it only takes 3 years. And your Tanasalawim took 20. How long did it take to do Boyhood? And other movies like that. I really admire Richard Linklater. The guy's got absolute guts. I love that kind of courage in filmmaking. And you have to be courageous. You have to be willing to take chances.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you all again. I'm, especially me personally, in many ways, I'm only here because of y'all and y'all's work. But I would love to start to hear from the audience. Do we have any questions for our lovely guest? Let's go.
One back there?
Mm-hmm. I'll repeat the question, but what advice do y'all have for someone who's looking to get started?
Get started. That's it. There's nothing else. Just get started.
Yeah.
And don't stop.
Thank you. Yeah.
Do y'all have any
Another
advice?
one. Another question?
We'll start.
Hi, it's very nice to meet you. I have a question about, so whenever you're looking to adapt a work, like you adapted a book, did you have any fear with your creative vision, speaking over the creative vision of the already existing work? And if you did, how did you deal with that?
I was very lucky with this particular work because I had a chance to when I read the book, in fact, I picked up the phone and knew that he was Tomás Rivera was teaching at UTSA. So I called him and told him, I just read this wonderful book and I want to make it into a movie. That was 1973. I had, at the beginning of my career, I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I saw the film that I wanted to make. So I had several, it's kind of unfair for other adaptations because I spoke to him. I had a chance to tell him what I wanted to do with it. So it's quite different for me than for other people. But often the writers, screenwriters and novelists work together at adaptations.
Any other questions out there? Yes.
Yeah, when you adapted the book, there are some changes that obviously were made, like the name. And who negotiated that? Did Rivera work with you on that? Or?
No, he didn't. But I took some liberties. Like there is no boy in the book, but it's hinted at. So I took the hint and turned it into a boy, and I gave him a name. And the book is written in several voices. So sometimes it's an adult speaking, sometimes it's somebody else speaking. And so I decided that we see the story, but we hear the narration from the adult boy rather than hear it from the child. So it has a chance. As a writer, the novelist Tomás Rivera had a chance to, when he wrote this, had a chance to look back on his life with a maturity. And so those sort of the choices of creating those characters. And I took a couple of other liberties of just writing liberties. There's some things that were not in the book, but I felt were to the moment.
Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you all for sitting here and speaking with us beforehand. But my question would be, when you took the book adaptation, what was kind of your plan for you said it was beginning in your career, funding it? How do you go around just that's always my biggest fear, going in just making something and being too big of a picture, having too big of a head. It's how did you get around that and just going around being an early filmmaker?
I had to mature. I had to work on a couple of feature films, longer things. And as a production manager, as I said, I was a production manager for a while. So I had a chance to see how the shows are put together. I took classes at night about how you option a property, what is a deal, what kind of deals exist. Learn the business. There is a business. It's not that hard to learn, but there is a business, and so many people actually ignore that, and of course then they immediately get sued. So I worked with Alfonso Arau, the director who did Like Powder for Chocolate. And one of his quotes was, "Do all the legal stuff first, because you try to do it afterwards, you'll pay a fortune. You want to get the piece of music for your film, get it first. If you want to, put everything together in writing first, then if there's any discussions, you have a contract that you can turn to. So if you cheat on the contract on your side or they cheat on their side, well, then you may have legal reasons. But for the most part, if it's in a contract, it's in writing, there's usually no problems.
Yeah. What are the agreements? Make your agreements, especially if it's someone living,
And it's not that hard. You learn how to do it. It's just some business things that you have to learn.
I think we have time for one more question. Yes.
I just want to know, again, thank you for being here. I just want to know who inspires you guys. This is for the whole panel. What inspires you? What did inspire you, and maybe who inspires you now?
Who inspires me? Well, there's a lot of filmmakers. Well, Richard Linklater has said, why? Because of the size of his ambition. God, I appreciate that, because I know that it's not an accident that the film looks good afterwards. I mean, he spent a lot of time learning how to do what he was doing, and now that he's a master, I admire that. I admire anybody who's gone through the entire process and made directing or acting or anything like that look easy, because it's not. I've had many people come to me go say, when you're on the set, you don't seem to be all harried and everything. It must be easy. So they tried to do it themselves and crash and burn. And don't realize that for every moment I spent on the set, I spent hours and hours and hours, days, weeks preparing for that moment.
Who inspires y'all?
Who inspires you, Marco?
Well, inspiration comes in many forms. I mean, I can think of great filmmakers that have inspired me through the years, and whose films I've watched, and I could list all kinds of films, and I've learned from them. There's no doubt about that. And I've worked with some really fine directors that have been instrumental in me understanding the process of filmmaking better. But I also want to say that inspiration goes beyond the confines of just filmmakers. In my life, I have to say that I think my father was one of the biggest inspirations in my life. And I like to share that because I think that's a reflection of that character that you see up there as well, that I built that on. And I say that because too many times we hear stories and see movies that depict the father in a very negative light. They're the borracho, they're the womanizer, they're the, those things happen, yeah. They happen to any culture. But I was blessed with having an earthly father that made an example of what sacrifice is about in my life. And I have to say that went beyond just filmmaking, although he was into photography, he was into a lot of these things that inspired me as well. He was involved in the movie business as well. I saw him work. I saw him work with an independent company as a cameraman. I saw him. He was a jack of all trades. He was also a singer, and I have to say, watching him was something that drove me to want to be like him. And in my own way, in my own path. So I just want to say that he was one of the biggest influences in my life, and I thank God above for him. Okay.
Yeah, it's a big question, actually, because I am inspired by the choices and sacrifices that the women in my family made, especially those that didn't dare think of having their own life. I am inspired by mentors. Dr. Dorothy Jane Marsh, first female obstetrician, LA County. She liked my dad. She came over for dinner, and she was at every holiday. Had no children. I have no children. She mentored me, and there are plenty of children on this planet to love that I love. And all of that, what do I want to be my legacy? I look towards all of them, from youth to aged, and my own gray hair. But, genuinely, as what's the legacy of story and ethics and aesthetics. Gaudi, I work with my hands. I make mosaics with broken tiles. I break things and I put them back together. I ask them, what do you want to be? And we enter into a conversation and become something. I'm into transformation. So the Watts Towers, the murals, the muralists that have become friends. I look to other art forms to get me out of my head and help me get that on the screen or the stage or the wall.
Great, yeah, lovely. So thank you again for being here.